When the bones begin to whisper and the mirror forgets your name, the truth of people becomes clearer than the morning sun. Let me tell you, in your old age, peace is not a luxury, it's your right. They don't knock, they never do. They slip in through the cracks of memory, sit at your table, and serve you stories seasoned with shame. You'll know them by the sigh in their voice, the pause that waits for your apology, the way they say, "If only you had," and expect you to fold beneath the weight of their unfinished sentences. In your old age, guilt arrives in soft shoes, not always loud, not always cruel. Sometimes it comes dressed as love. It will wear the face of a cousin, the voice of a grown child, the hands of someone who once knew you well enough to hurt you. They will remind you of what you didn't do, not what you survived, not what you carried, not what you sacrificed, but what you missed. One birthday, one phone call, one moment when your hands were too full and your heart too heavy to answer a need they didn't even voice until years later. The guilt whisperer is dangerous not because they yell, but because they whisper long enough for you to think their words are your own. And let me tell you, if you are not careful, you will begin to apologize for living your life. You will begin to regret the hours you gave to working 2 shifts just to keep the lights on, the nights you spent alone so your children could sleep in a home and not a shelter, the dreams you buried in silence so someone else could rise. They don't care about your truth, not really. What they want is not your story. They want your sorrow. They want to drape it over their shoulders like a robe and walk around as if your pain gives them purpose. You weren't there, they'll say. And never once will they ask where you were. Not in the factory, not in the kitchen, not in the hospital with aching knees, or at the bus stop in the rain. You were there, just not where they wanted you to be. And now they want you to wear that absence like a noose. But I tell you today, you do not owe anyone your guilt. You see, guilt is a cage that keeps you in yesterday while today passes by unnoticed. It is a thief of sunsets and soft mornings. It steals the music from your laughter and replaces it with apologies. But you, my dear, have earned your joy. You have bought it with blood, with silence, with nights of hunger and years of compromise. Let them come with their rehearsed grievances and curated memories. Let them sit down with their list of your supposed sins. But you sit taller. You meet their gaze, not with defense, but with clarity, because you know who you were. You know what it took. You know how you bent yourself backward for a world that often met you with closed doors and silent mouths. You are not perfect. No one asked you to be. And if they did, they lied. You were human, and being human is not a crime that requires a lifelong sentence of shame. There are those who confuse sacrifice with absence, who measure love by presence alone and forget that love can also look like discipline, like distance, like late nights spent praying when you had nothing left to give. They want you to regret. But regret cannot build what was never understood, and guilt cannot heal what was never fully seen. Some will accuse you of forgetting, but it is they who forget. They forget the meals made from nothing, the clothes sewn from scraps, the songs hummed at midnight when your child cried and no one else came. They forget that you gave when you had little and forgave when you had even less. They forget, and then they ask for penance. But you remember. And now in your old age, when your hands tremble not from fear, but from the grace of years well spent, you must not allow their whispers to undo your silence. Peace is not a passive thing, it must be chosen. And sometimes, to keep peace, you must put your foot down on the throat of guilt and say, no more. You do not owe them your pain. You do not need to shrink before their revisionist history. Your life is a testament, not a trial. Your days are a poem, not a punishment. So when they come again, and they will, with soft sighs and sharp looks, with phrases wrapped in care that bite like nettles, you smile and you say, "I remember who I am," and that, my love, will be enough. Let them whisper. You are no longer listening. They don't always come looking like villains. No, the joy thief wears many faces, some familiar, some fond, some you once trusted to hold your heart without bruising it. They step into your home, into your day, into your spirit, not with fists raised, but with words dipped in vinegar, eyes that measure you, lips that curl just enough to say, "Why are you so happy?" They never ask it out loud. That would be too bold. No, they say it in glances, in tone, in the way they sit too stiff in your softness, too heavy in your light. They are allergic to ease, offended by your contentment. Your laughter, especially now in your older years, sounds to them like rebellion. And perhaps it is, because they expected you to be small, to be quiet, to be tired. They didn't plan for you to smile wide or dance in your kitchen while the kettle sings. They didn't prepare for your joy to bloom like wildflowers through the concrete of all you've been through. And when you laugh, really laugh, when you let that sound rise from the deepest part of you like a song finally remembered, oh, it rattles them, it confronts them. Because your joy is proof that survival was not the end of your story, that you didn't just endure, you emerged. They can't stand that, so they come to dim you, bit by bit. A comment here, a sigh there. They ask how you can be so carefree with everything going on in the world, as if joy ever meant you didn't care, as if smiling is an insult to sorrow. They don't understand that joy, especially now, is not ignorance, but resistance. It is you refusing to let bitterness age you more than time already has. They ask what you're so dressed up for, and you say, myself, and that unsettles them. They expect joy to come from outside, a person, a prize, a permission, but yours is an inside job, born of years spent loving people who didn't stay, losing things you thought you couldn't live without, crying alone in silence and then wiping your face and opening the door to the world again. You made joy from scraps. You stitched it together like a quilt from every laugh you earned through pain. But the joy thief doesn't want to know that. They want to believe your happiness is shallow, a performance, a phase, a foolishness. Because if your joy is real, then their bitterness is a choice. And they're not ready to face that. So they belittle what they can't understand. You're too old to be acting like that, they say. Aren't you supposed to be slowing down? No, you are not here to fade quietly. You are not the background in someone else's drama. You are not an afterthought in your own story. You've waited too long, sacrificed too much, cried too deeply to let someone come now in your season of soft light and earned peace and turn off the music in your soul. See, they think you need permission, that because you have wrinkles now, you must also have regret. That because your hair is gray, your days must be dull. But you are a fire kept warm, not dying. You are a song that never lost its rhythm, only its dancers. And now you're dancing alone and it is beautiful. So when the joy thief comes, you must know them. You must recognize the way they lean in only to take, the way they cannot clap when you win, the way they always find a cloud in your sunny sky. You speak of your garden and they talk about weeds. You mention a kind neighbor and they reply with a story of betrayal. You say, life feels good lately, and they say it won't last. They think they are wise. They mistake pessimism for preparation, but wisdom doesn't scowl at joy. It honors it. Wisdom knows that after all the nights you've held yourself together in the dark, you deserve to throw your head back and laugh in the light. Wisdom claps when you smile, even with broken teeth. Sometimes the joy thief is someone you love. That makes it harder. You want them to be happy with you. You invite them into your peace, but they walk through your serenity like it's a battlefield. They carry their own storms, and instead of finding shelter in your calm, they open their umbrellas and complain it might rain. You cannot heal them by shrinking yourself. You cannot save them by silencing your laughter. Your joy is not medicine for those who refuse to swallow truth. And joy, true joy, will not survive in a room full of resentment. So leave the door open, but don't dim the lights. Let them walk in if they can handle it. Let them leave if they cannot. Because here's what you must remember. You earned this. You built this peace from rubble. You found your joy not in spite of your life, but because of it. Every smile is a survivor's song. Every laugh is a small revolution. You wear your joy like silk, not loud, not boastful, but undeniable. And no one, no matter how clever or close, has the right to take it from you. Let them call it silly. Let them call it soft. Let them misunderstand. That is not your burden. Your only duty now is to keep the fire lit, to hum your tunes, to wear your colors, to water your plants, to drink your tea and savor your days. Let joy echo in your home, even if no one else claps, because this is the reward for not giving up. Let no one take it from you. They arrive like old friends. They smile like they come in peace, their hands open, their voice warm, their presence familiar. And maybe they are old friends. Maybe they're kin. Maybe they know your favorite color or remember your birthday. But the moment they sit down beside you, they begin their digging. Not into the present, not into your peace, not into the garden you've planted with such care, but into your past, your wounds, your oldest scars. They come with questions that look like curiosity, but feel like excavation. Do you remember when he left? What happened between you and your sister? Did it ever stop hurting? They don't ask to understand. They ask to stir. They ask to unearth the things you've spent decades learning to live with, trying to rise above. They bring up the names you've forgiven, the faces you finally blurred, the tragedies that nearly broke you but didn't, and they want details. Oh, come on, they say, laughing. You can tell me. And maybe you do, because there's something in you that still wants to be heard, something in you that believes someone finally wants to hold your story with care. But no, the memory digger does not hold, they collect. They stack your sorrow like trophies, take it back home and display it, talk about it, repeat it. Not with compassion, but with drama. They love a good tale of pain, especially if it's yours. They don't want the truth, they want the tears, they want the version of your life that makes them feel something deep and tragic. Not to heal with you, but to feed on the emotion. They want to see your eyes glass over. They want your voice to tremble. It makes them feel useful, maybe even powerful. Maybe it distracts them from their own silence. And sometimes they're clever. They don't go straight for the heart. They begin gently. You were always so strong, they say. I just wonder how you managed after he died. Or, you must have cried so much when your child moved away. And it seems innocent enough. But you see, they're not here to admire your strength. They're here to disassemble it. They poke and prod and pull until your past is bleeding on the table again, and they're sitting there like a surgeon who has no intention to close the wound. You can see it in the way they lean forward when the story gets sad, how their voice softens not with empathy, but anticipation. They wait for the moment your breath catches, the moment the memory grips you too tightly. That's when they feel they've done something. That's when they smile, satisfied, as if digging up your grief is a kind of intimacy. But it is not. It is intrusion. And in your old age, you must learn the difference, because your memory is not a museum for the curious. It is not a tour for the uninvited. Your sorrow is not performance art. What you lived, what you survived, deserves reverence, not review. And you do not owe anyone a retelling of your pain simply because they ask. The memory digger cannot find joy in the now, so they fish through your yesterday for something raw, something sharp, something that stings. They do not come with flowers, they come with shovels. And if you let them, they'll dig until you are buried in memories you had long put to rest. Sometimes the digging makes you question yourself. You wonder, did I really let it go? Why do I still cry when I talk about it? But pain that is no longer dominant can still echo. That doesn't mean it rules you. That doesn't mean you owe it oxygen every time someone's curious. Some things hurt and always will, but hurting doesn't mean broken, and revisiting doesn't mean healing. Healing, after all, is not a performance. It's not something you prove with stories. It's something you live in quiet mornings, in deep breaths, in laughter without explanation. And some of your greatest healing happened when no one was watching. But the memory digger doesn't care about those chapters, the peaceful ones, the strong ones. They don't ask about the day you finally slept through the night or the moment you looked in the mirror and saw beauty again. They skip over those pages. They want the heartbreak, not the rebuilding. But let me tell you something. Not every part of you must be shared. Not every memory is public domain. Some things are yours and yours alone. And guarding them is not secrecy, it's sovereignty. You have a right to say, that's not a story I feel like telling. You have a right to smile and change the subject. You have a right to protect your peace from those who want to poke at it like it's some puzzle they can piece together. Because what they call curiosity, you feel as intrusion. What they call caring, you feel as pressure, and you are not wrong. It took you years to bury certain memories under the shade of forgiveness, under the soil of growth. And now you water your life with joy. You sit in sunlight. You drink your coffee slowly. You talk to the birds. You hum when you cook. And that is sacred. When the memory digger shows up, they act like they're looking for truth. But often they're looking for drama, for discomfort, for emotional currency. And that's not healing, that's hunger, and you don't have to feed it. Let them be uncomfortable with your silence. Let them sit in the awkward pause when you don't give them what they came for. Let them find someone else's past to pry into. You've already lived yours. You've already carried it far enough. If someone cannot sit with you in the now, they do not deserve the privilege of your then. You are not required to revisit every ache for someone else's entertainment. You are not a diary to be read aloud. You are not a confession booth for someone craving secondhand sorrow. And if you ever feel your peace shaking, your spirit retreating, your breath tightening at the sound of their voice saying, "Tell me again what happened," know that you are allowed, absolutely allowed, and to say, no, your memories are yours. Not all of them are for sharing, and some were meant to stay buried, not because they don't matter, but because you do. They don't knock, they assume. They don't ask, they expect. They come into your life not with grace, but with grabby hands and a heart too closed to notice the weight they leave behind. The taker with no thank you does not arrive in a storm. No, they slip in during the quiet seasons. When you have finally made peace with your pace, when you've learned to live gently, they find the softness in you, and instead of honoring it, they exploit it. They remember your kindness, not as something precious, but as something permanent, like a tap that never runs dry. They think because you once gave without hesitation, you must forever do so. They mistake your generosity for obligation, your warmth for weakness. And the worst part, they never say thank you, not once, not with their words, not with their actions, not even with the silence that says, I see what you did for me. They take again and again, a ride here, a favor there, money, time, space, energy. And every time they take, they grow more entitled. They start to build their comfort on your effort. They carve out convenience from your patience. And when you pause, when you so much as hesitate, their tone changes, their eyes narrow. Suddenly, your boundaries feel like betrayal. They don't just want your help, They want your help without acknowledgement. They want to be served without gratitude. They want you to make their lives easier while yours bends, breaks, and bleeds. And still, they'll act as if it's just what you do, as if you owe them. You might tell yourself they don't know better, that they're struggling, that they don't mean harm. But harm doesn't always come wrapped in cruelty. Sometimes it's the quiet erosion of your time, your peace, your effort, your presence, all given freely and received greedily. The taker with no thank you will rarely offer you anything in return, and if they do, it will come with conditions or a delay so long you forget you ever needed help. They are the ones who forget your birthday but expect a gift on theirs. They borrow and never return. They call only when something needs fixing, lifting, buying, softening. And when you stop giving, when you finally say, "Not today," they vanish. Or worse, they turn cold. As if your value was only measured by what you could hand over, you might think, maybe I'm being unkind. That's how they work. They train you to feel guilty for choosing yourself, but your worth is not in your utility. Your value does not diminish when you stop overextending. There is a kind of person who feeds off your effort, but never nourishes you in return. And at this point in life, after all the years, after all the giving, after all the silent sacrifices, you have earned the right to ask, who pours back into me? It doesn't make you selfish to notice who leaves you empty. It makes you wise. The taker with no thank you is not just a user. They are a mirror showing you where you have confused love with service, compassion with self-erasure. You were not put on this earth to be someone's convenience. You are not a well to be drained dry. You are not the forever caretaker for people who refuse to carry anything for themselves. There will always be people who see your goodness as something to consume. But you must protect it like something sacred, because it is. Your time, your love, your patience, your presence, they are not infinite and they are not free. You can still give, yes, but not without measure, not without pause, not without receiving even a sliver of kindness back. A thank you costs nothing, yet means everything. And the absence of it is not just rude, it's revealing. It tells you that they believe your giving is their right. And that is the moment you must remember it is not. It is a privilege to be cared for. It is a blessing to be loved. And anyone who cannot honor that with a simple, sincere thank you is not someone you need to keep pouring into. The world will not fall apart if you close the door to the ungrateful, but your spirit might if you keep letting them in. So stand tall. Pour your love where it can bloom, not where it evaporates. Give, but not to the point of depletion. Help, but not at the cost of your peace. And most of all, never forget, your kindness is a gift, not a guarantee. They say the words with ease. I love you. Smooth as silk, soft as Sunday morning. They speak it with eyes that don't blink and a mouth that never falters. But if you stay still long enough, if you let the silence stretch between you, you'll hear something hollow behind the words. Because love, real love, is more than just said. It is shown, it is carried, it is proven. And the pretender of love has never been in the business of proving. They know what love is supposed to look like. They've studied it. They've learned the gestures, the timing, the tone. They smile at just the right moment, offer just enough sweetness to keep you soft, but never enough truth to keep you secure. They lean on your care. They drink from your attention. They bask in the warmth you give so easily, and then they leave you cold. You don't always see them coming. They don't arrive in villain's clothing. No, they come wrapped in charm and politeness. They remember your favorite song. They text good morning. They show up, but only when it's easy. They love the idea of you. your kindness, your listening, your loyalty, but not the responsibility that real love demands. They want your presence without your needs, your heart without your history, your softness without your storms. And when you ask for more, not much, just clarity, honesty, consistency, they look at you like you've ruined the moment. Why are you being so difficult? They ask. Why can't you just be happy with what we have? But what do you have? A performance, a shadow, a version of love where you give and they take and smile. And when the taking becomes too obvious, they sprinkle just enough affection to make you stay. They do not love you, they manage you. They have no desire to grow roots with you. They love in seasons. They love in convenience. They love in the shallow end. But you've always been deep water. You were never built for temporary. You've weathered too many storms to play pretend. And still, they see you and try. Maybe it's the way you love, full, without holding back. Maybe it's the way you believe, even after all you've been through. That kind of openness draws them in. But the pretender of love does not know what to do with someone who cannot be fooled forever. So they charm, they distract, they say everything but the truth. And when you grow quiet, when you begin to see the cracks in the illusion, they panic, they say more words, they make more promises. I never meant to hurt you, they'll say. This is just hard for me. But they never stay to do the work. They never lean in when it counts. They are full of intention and empty of action. You keep hoping that maybe this time they'll choose you all the way, that maybe you can be patient enough, loving enough to make them love you better. But love is not something you should have to earn after you've already given your heart. Love that makes you shrink is not love. Love that requires your silence is not love. Love that only exists on their terms is not love. It is control dressed in affection. It is loneliness with a hand to hold. And here's the hardest part. Sometimes the pretender of love doesn't even know they're pretending. They think they feel something true. But when the test comes, when life asks them to stay, to show up, to sacrifice, they vanish into the fog of I'm not ready or you deserve better. And they're right. You do. But you stayed because you believed. Because love to you is not just emotion, it is action. It is choosing someone even on the days it's hard. It's honesty, not games, consistency, not convenience. And you were willing to give that. You were ready to be real. They weren't. So when they walk away, or worse, when they stay just enough to keep you from leaving, you must make the hard choice. You must choose truth over illusion. You must walk away from the echo of love and toward the real thing, even if it means being alone for a while. Because the truth is this, you don't need perfect. You don't need fireworks and flawless romance. But you do need real. You do need someone whose love is rooted, not rehearsed. Who shows up on the hard days. Who doesn't just say, I love you, but builds a life around proving it. Let the pretender go. Let the charm fade. Let the silence come. Because after the quiet, after the ache, after the long nights wondering if it was your fault, you'll feel it. The lightness, the peace, the steady knowing that you were never asking for too much. You were just asking the wrong person. You've walked through deserts, oceans, and storms. You have loved and lost and risen. This stage of life is not a time to explain, to shrink, or to bend. It is the season to bloom in stillness, to gather your light, to sip your morning tea in peace. So close the door, not in anger, but in grace. Because the ones you avoid now are the ones who would have buried your spirit before your body even grew tired. And you, my dear, were never meant to go out dim.